You are listening to Real Talk Texas on 570 KLIF News and Information. Now, live in studio, your host, local real estate expert Steve Hakes.
Welcome to Real Talk Texas. Today in the studio, we've got Lisa Richardson with Keller Williams. It's going to be a really great show because she's got some really unique specialties that we haven't talked about a while in the show. And so we brought Lisa in because she's one of the top 1% or top 100 buyer's agents in the Metroplex. One of the things I like about Lisa is that she specializes in some investor properties or investor buyers, giving them consults. She owns and operates her own real estate business with a management company. She owns herself personally, 26 properties. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how she got those properties as well. We found it very interesting in our pre-show interview that we did with Lisa. She's got some great things to talk about. You're going to stay tuned for the whole show because we've got a real expert in the studio here, Lisa Richardson. So welcome to the show.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hey, Lisa, tell our audience a little bit about how you got into real estate and why you have such a passion. Because when I talk to you, you really have a passion for what you do.
You guys are going to think this is funny, but back in the early 80s and 90s, there was a gentleman called Carlton Sheets. I know you guys remember him. And I was laying in bed and I thought, man, if this guy can do it, so can I.
You were one of those late night can't sleep. It was like 3 or 4
yes,
in the morning.
exactly. And so I started listening, and I thought, well, heck, I'm going to try it out. And I ordered the system, and honestly, it worked for me back then because it was typical, kind of like today. We're in the market where it's very hard. You've got people that's going through divorce or going through hard times, and they just don't qualify traditionally. I know you've got some great programs you're telling me about that, second chance buyers, and this was the mold that fit for it. People they couldn't do, that was before short sales. That was before they could do loan modification. So their only avenue was to either move out, vacate the property, have it foreclosed, or have someone assume their payment.
And that's one of the things we're going to reach out to our audience today, because if you're listening and you're faced with a hardship and you need to figure out something to do with your property so that you don't go into foreclosure, and we'll talk a little bit later about how us lenders have to look at foreclosures on your credit report and what that really does. I mean, it really puts you in, if you have a foreclosure, it puts you in a penalty box for up to 7 years for a Fannie Mae loan or a Freddie Mac loan, and that's called conventional loan, or it's 3 years with an FHA on foreclosed property. So it's something that you really always tell my clients, the first thing you pay is your mortgage, and you figure it out from there because that's the one that sticks on your credit the longest and gives you the most difficulty. If you got behind on a car payment or you got behind on a credit card or something like that, usually after 12 months, it's kind of doesn't affect your scores as much. But foreclosures, short sales, those things do affect you. But fortunately, there are some other ways that we can help you as well. So tell me a little bit more about that. We aren't faced with as much of a foreclosure crisis today, but I hear there's some shadow inventory and things like that where the banks have really kind of hung people out there. They haven't foreclosed yet. What's going on there in the distress market?
Well, what's happening, in my opinion, is that they get behind. Once you're behind more than 2 payments, they expect it all in full. The banks, when I say they, are saying, well, if you trip a little bit, give us a call. We'll try to do a loan modification. We'll try to take those 2 or 3 months that you're behind, and we'll put it on the back end, and let's just start you over. But what I'm finding is that they're declining those. They're telling them, hey, we'll send you the opportunity. Thanks to the new laws.
It's a program out there from the government that helps Fannie Mae and government loans as well, where they can help you modify. It's a housing relief program. And basically what it allows you to do is the lenders get money from the government, and I think that's running out here shortly. But basically what they do is they have a couple options. They can modify and lower your rate, and they get reimbursed by the government, us taxpayers. We help these people stay in their homes. Or they'll forgive some of the debt. We haven't really seen that much in Texas here, but some places where you're really upside down, in California, Nevada, Florida, we've seen some forgiveness of debt, lowering what's due. A total note that's due. And then there's also ones where they just, like you said, just kind of reset and put the payments to the end. If you can pay your payment now, maybe something happened. You lost a job, now you got your job back. So some of those things. There are some programs out there that if you're in trouble like that, call us. We can possibly help you out with that. But the other option is actually getting out of the house. And how do you do that gracefully and save your credit. I think that's the thing.
Well, there's two options, depending on the bank. There are some banks that are good, and short sales do work on some. Other banks, they're just going to string you along for 2 years. We had clients that were in the home for 2 years without making a single payment, had a buyer lined up, and the bank foreclosed anyway, the day before closing.
Really?
Really. So we do work with quite a bit of short sales, and we do help people get out. And we do have other options as well in case it's Judgment Day and they are going to foreclose that day. We have actually stopped them on the courthouse step.
How do you do that?
We send in an offer to the bank, and it's typically one of our inside investors that will come in and pay cash and pay it off.
So you have those people lined up for
We have several investors lined up ready to help. And not only that, but in some cases, they'll even give them moving expenses to help them move on to the next place.
Kind of like Cash for Keys program used to be. I don't even know that program's out there anymore.
There's a lot of programs that they started that's not effective, that doesn't work.
Okay.
So we give them those options.
Well, if you just tuned in, you're listening to Real Talk Texas. We've got Lisa Richardson with Keller Williams in the studio. She's a great resource. She's a real expert in the real estate market. She is really focused in on some of the niche areas out there in real estate where people are in trouble, or maybe they're a first-time buyer. We're going to talk about that, about how to get some money for free money to help for down payment. We'll talk about that later in the show. We've got some great things to talk about. And Lisa, I just want to also pass along some of her accolades. She's been named number one in North Texas as a realtor, $1 million producer with Keller Williams for several years running. She's a top producer, and she's been one of the top 10 agents and top 1% with Keller Williams as well. So we've got a real expert in the studio. You're going to want to stay tuned, because next segment we're going to talk more about if you're looking to buy a house as an investor. How do you do that? What's going on with the real estate market as far as the inventory levels? How do you get money to help you get into that business? So you want to stay tuned. This is Real Talk Texas. I'm your host, Steve Hakes. You're on KLIF, AM 570, News and Information.